The following is a WRHU special program. If you want talk, games, and fun all rolled into one, well, you've come to the right place. This is The Game Show, where host Bradley Clarke and his special guests talk about the world of television game and competition shows. But Bradley's guests aren't here to just talk. They came to play a game as well. What will today's topic be? What game does Bradley have planned? There's only one way to find out.
It's time to start the show.
You heard the man. Welcome to The Game Show. And here's your host, the Bradster himself, Bradley Clarke.
It certainly is time to start the show. Thank you so much, Austin Angelo, and welcome to The Game Show, where I talk about the world of television game and competition shows. However, I'm not the only one doing the talking, because if you are a frequent listener of the program, you know I always have a special guest who joins in on the conversation with me. And today, I'll be talking with one of the greatest game show contestants of all time.
I'm Brad Rutter. I was first on Jeopardy in 2000, what doesn't seem like that long ago though, and I'm the all-time leading money winner on the show. So I won 5 times the first time I was on, back in those days when they made you leave after 5 wins. And then I came back that year for the Tournament of Champions and I won that. And they had the $1 Million Masters in New York the next year and I ended up winning that. And the Ultimate Tournament in 2005 and I won that.
What you just heard were some of this famed Jeopardy contestant's accomplishments, as he also participated in the IBM Challenge in 2011, was the $1 million winner of Jeopardy's Battle of the Decades back in 2014, and is the all-time game show money winner with a total of, get this, $4,555,102. The answer, he joins me on the line now to talk about his Jeopardy milestone wins, plus his other game show appearances. The question, who is Brad Rutter? Brad, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
No problem. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's only fitting that 2 great game show authorities are named Brad. What are the chances?
Yeah, well, although I am Bradford, so we can't be that similar, I guess. But you go by Brad, I suppose, fairly often.
Yeah.
And I do too. So, yeah, it's close enough, I guess.
Close enough. That's what counts. First off, what you been up to since we last saw you win $1 million on Jeopardy again?
Pretty much what I've been up to for the past few years. I produce films and TV shows and act a little bit and do some improv around town here. So that's what I've been busy with.
Nice. And I've been busy hosting great shows like this with guests like you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to take a trip down memory lane with you. So we'll start at the beginning of your Jeopardy success and work our way to your most recent win during the Battle of the Decades. Plus, I have a few questions related to some of your other game show endeavors. And later, we're going to play a game that actually tests your knowledge of your own game show career. Sound good?
Oh, wow, that's great, because I was just about to say, as we go through this, don't be surprised if maybe you remember stuff a little better than I do, because it has been a long time, and it all kind of runs together at a certain point.
Don't worry, you'll be just fine. I'm sure it'll all be coming back to you as we talk. But if you were looking for a Brad Rutter game show career refresher, you've come to the right place, because I consider myself somewhat of a game show know-it-all. So if you need some help remembering some stuff, don't be afraid to ask. Since 7 years old, my dream has been to become a game show host, so you're in good hands when it comes to the game show trivia department, because I've been studying this genre for over a decade now.
All right.
So let's, of course, start with Jeopardy. I'm sure you've been a huge fan of the show for years and years, just like myself. When did you first become fascinated with Jeopardy?
I can't really remember, because I guess I was 6 years old when Alex came back on with the show, and my parents had been fans of the old Art Fleming show, so they were fans from the beginning when Alex brought it back, and I can't remember when I started watching. It was just kind of always around. By the time I got to high school, I started thinking, you know what, I could probably do okay if I went on the show.
I think you did pretty well.
Yeah, well, although if you told me how well I would end up doing, I would have told you were crazy, but there you go.
So back in the year 2000, when you first appeared on Jeopardy during season 17, when you first walked onto the Jeopardy set, or at the time what many fans called the sushi bar set, did you ever imagine you would be a legend in the game show world in only a few short years?
No, I had no idea. In fact, my goal going in was just to win once so I could call myself a Jeopardy champion.
Right, that's what I think the main goal is for anyone appearing on Jeopardy. I watch a lot of interviews with past champions like yourself, and they always say winning one game and calling themselves a Jeopardy champion is really the best prize.
Sure.
So back when you first appeared on Jeopardy, the show still had the 5-time rule in effect, meaning once you won 5 games, you were retired as an undefeated champion. So if Jeopardy allowed you at the time to keep playing as long as you can win, how many games do you think you might have won?
I'm pretty comfortable saying more than 5, but beyond that, it's really hard to tell. In fact, somebody ran the math on Ken's run, and even if you gave Ken a 99% chance of winning any particular game, he still had a less than 50% chance of winning 74 games. Everything usually comes down to Final Jeopardy, and that can go so many different ways that it's impossible to predict. But I think I probably could have got at least 6 or 7.
And not only were you first on the show when the 5-time rule was still in effect, but also when the original dollar amounts were still being used on the game board. In the Jeopardy round, the clues went from $100 to $500, and in the Double Jeopardy round, the clues ranged from $200 to $1,000. So imagine how much more money you would have won had you been on the show just a year or so later when they doubled the game board amounts.
Our producer has decided that after working for the same wages for the past 18 years, our contestants deserved an increase. And so it's going to happen today. You can forget about clues valued at $100 to $500 in the Jeopardy round, because as of today, those clues are now worth $200 to $1,000. And we will, of course, double the amount in Double Jeopardy as well.
I mean, it would have been doubled, obviously, probably.
Right.
But honestly, the way things worked out, I really can't complain. If I had been on later when they doubled the question values, I wouldn't have been around for the $1 Million Masters tournament. So there you go.
And speaking of the $1 Million Masters tournament, which was in 2002, it took place in New York at Radio City Music Hall. And actually, I don't want to make you sound old, Brad, but at the time of the tournament, I was only 4 years old.
You don't have to give me any help feeling old, but that certainly did help.
No problem. I'm here for you, Brad, anytime you need me. So I was 4 years old. I was so mad at the time because my mom actually got tickets to go see the show. She doesn't remember which episode she saw, but I was so mad because at the time, even though I was just 4 years old, I loved this game. And I was so mad that I didn't get to see the $1 Million Masters tournament. So you were playing at this 6,000-seat venue compared to where they usually film Jeopardy, where it's about 200 seats or so. Was there more pressure playing in such an iconic venue, and was it more nerve-wracking with more people watching?
At first it was. Fortunately, we had some rehearsals before we actually played with the audience there. But yeah, that was something I'd never felt before, was walking out onto the stage at Radio City and seeing the balconies and a giant orchestra full of people, especially, like you said, compared to the 200 or so people at the Jeopardy studio. So it kind of took me aback at first, but I had a little bit of a chance to get used to it. And then by the time we started playing the games, you know, you just get so focused on what's going on that I didn't really notice the audience until afterwards.
And for those of you listening who aren't familiar with Brad Rutter's first $1 Million winning moment, here it is. Take a listen.
I sure hope our players boned up on American history. Vice Presidents is the category for this deciding Final Jeopardy. Here comes the clue. He was the only vice president to be elected to and serve 2 full terms as president. 30 seconds. Good luck. Bob, you won a lot of fans here with that gutsy move on that daily double. Let's take a look and see if you were able to come up with the final Jeopardy response. Who was Thomas Jefferson? No. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, is it?
It is. You double your score to 800. We add that to what he had yesterday, and that gives him a 2-day total of 7,600. Eric, you had 12,800 today. And your response was correct also. How much did you wager? Everything. You moved to 25,600. Brad was leading yesterday, and he was leading going into final again today. Did he come up with Thomas Jefferson?
In very bad handwriting.
Very bad handwriting. You had to risk. You had to risk enough. 201. That takes 13,801 today. When you add that to 11,800, the margin is $1, but it makes you a millionaire. Oh, my God. Enjoy the moment, Brad.
Wow, what an amazing moment that must have been, especially since you were at Radio City Music Hall and 6,000 people were cheering for you that you won $1 million. But I've been wanting to ask you, do your friends that were supporting you in the audience still have the Rutter t-shirts that they were wearing?
And this man
gets $1 million. Hey, look at your cheering section with the T-shirt.
You know what? I don't know. I would say I doubt it because they did just kind of scrawl Rutter on these drugstore white T-shirts with, I don't even know what they used. It was probably some kind of red paint or something.
And the $1 Million Masters is a tournament that I always look back on as being the first big tournament of its kind because besides the Tournament of Champions, which is basically a yearly event, if you were in this tournament, you were a true Jeopardy competitor. And this was the tournament that really led the way for the next two big tournaments, the Ultimate Tournament of Champions and the Battle of the Decades.
Yeah, and this might have been before you were born, honestly, but I'm kind of too young to remember Super Jeopardy, too.
I remember Super Jeopardy.
Do you? Okay,
well,
great.
I wasn't alive, but, you know, all this stuff I look up. Actually, it's funny.
Sure.
I'm not kidding you. This morning, I was looking up on YouTube clips from Super Jeopardy, not actually thinking I would be talking to you about Super Jeopardy, which means I guess I'm a bit psychic. And by the way, YouTube is such a great tool now to watch old game shows. Most people use it to watch viral videos, but not me. I go on YouTube to watch classic game shows. But anyway, I was able to find the intro to a Super Jeopardy episode. And it's fun to watch because not much Super Jeopardy material is still out there. And I'm actually going to play that intro for our listening audience right now.
This is Super Jeopardy! The conclusion of the $250,000 challenge. Now entering the studio are our finalists. A high school administrator from Medford Lakes, New Jersey, Dave Traney, who has won $70,502. A writer from Piedmont, California, Bruce Seymour, who has won $55,989. And a playwright, actor, and director from New York City, New York, Bob Varini, whose total winnings are $146,802. And now, here is the host of Super Jeopardy, Alex Trebek.
Thank you, Johnny Gilbert. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final game in our Super Jeopardy Summer Tournament. This event got underway 12 weeks ago with 35 of the very best Jeopardy players of the past 6 seasons, plus a Jeopardy champion from the original series way back in the 1960s.
Well, I'll have to check that out, too, because I do remember, and it was on primetime on ABC, if I remember correctly, and I guess I was probably 12 years old when it was on, and I've watched it once or twice, but I'm not too familiar with what actually happened there. But this was a long way of getting to the point that the $1 Million Masters was the first time they really had a big all-star tournament. I think Super Jeopardy might have been just 1 week in the summer or something like that, with the 4 podiums, but we probably had more competitors in the $1 Million Masters than Super Jeopardy, but like I said, I'm too young to remember.
Actually, Super Jeopardy, I wasn't even born, but just from knowing this just from knowing this stuff. It's just like you get facts and it just stays, and this is stuff that I remember. Super Jeopardy actually took place over the summer of 1990.
Oh, okay.
And the tournament featured 35 top players spanning the 7 seasons the show was on at the time. Plus the top winner from the Art Fleming version of Jeopardy back in the 60s and 70s.
Oh, Burns Cameron. I've
Yes.
actually met him a couple times.
Yes, he represented the Art Fleming generation of Jeopardy.
And now, here's the star of Jeopardy, Art Fleming.
Good morning. Thank you, players. Thank you, Don Pardo. Thank you, my friends. Good morning. I hope it's a good one for you. Thank you. The contestants for the day, good morning, players. Look at the board now as we all play Jeopardy. Thank you.
Right, and so that gets you to an even 36, so they can divide it into 4 podiums.
Right, yeah, they had the 4 podiums, and they played for points. And it's interesting because the Super Jeopardy tournament winner received $250,000, and now, in the present day, the Tournament of Champions winner also receives $250,000. So back in 1990, that was a big payday for a game show winner, $250,000.
Yeah, big money in 1990.
Absolutely. And do you remember what game show followed Super Jeopardy on ABC Saturday nights in the summer of 1990?
I do not.
It was Monopoly.
It wasn't Super Wheel of Fortune, was it?
No, it wasn't Super Wheel of Fortune. It was Monopoly.
Yes, Monopoly, the world's most famous board game, is now Monopoly, the TV game.
Oh, I do remember that now. I didn't remember the connection, but I remember the Monopoly game show.
Yeah, and there were actually some Jeopardy tie-ins to the Monopoly game show. Merv Griffin, of course, the legendary creator of Jeopardy, also created Monopoly, and former Jeopardy contestant Mike Riley was chosen as the host of Monopoly after he competed as a contestant on the pilot show hosted by Peter Tamarkin.
Good to know.
This is actually one of the proudest moments of my life. You don't understand, because now I could say that I taught Brad Rutter, who knows so many things about so many different topics, a piece of game show trivia. This is amazing.
Well, it'll start to get really weird when you start teaching me stuff about me that I have forgotten. So I'm looking forward to that, too.
All right, so let's get into the other tournament. So next up was the Ultimate Tournament of Champions, and that was in 2005.
This is a special Jeopardy competition, bringing together the greatest players of all time in the Ultimate Tournament of Champions.
So this was the tournament that made you the biggest winner in Jeopardy and television game show history, and here is your $2 million winning moment.
Final Jeopardy category is 20th century Americans. Here's the clue, gentlemen. These names of two original Mercury astronauts who orbited Earth in May of 1962 and May of 63 are also occupations. 30 seconds. We start with you. You were in third place today with 8,300. You came up with Carpenter and Shepherd. Sorry, that response is incorrect, and it will cost you how much? 7,300, taking you down to 1,000. Your previous total was 19,600, so you now have 20,600. Let's go to Ken Jennings. His response. Who are Cooper and Shepherd go Brad? No. Alan Shepard did not orbit the Earth, remember? He just went down the Atlantic. That will cost you how much? 801, leaving you with 8,599 today. We add that to your previous total of 26,000, and that gives you a three-day total of $34,599. And now we come to Brad Rutter, who are Carpenter and Cooper.
And I'll say, go Ken and go Jerome.
Go Ken and go Jerome. It was a great match. You didn't have to risk anything. You didn't. 23,600 added to your 38,000, 62,000 your total. That gets bumped up to $2 million. Congratulations.
Nice playing,
Brad Rutter. Now the biggest quiz or game show money winner in television history.
So you made it to the finals, which means one of the opponents you'd be facing is Ken Jennings, who is still one of the biggest names in America, as he just finished up his unprecedented 74-game run not too long before the Ultimate Tournament of Champions. So were you nervous going up against Ken with $2 million at stake?
No, actually. In fact, going back to when he first started making noise, a bunch of my friends were like, I can't believe he's getting all this attention. You're better than him. And I wouldn't necessarily say I was better than him, but I always thought, you know what? Yeah, he's good, but I don't think he's any significantly better than me. So I always figured, well, I'm the all-time money-winning record holder. I'm probably going to end up playing him sometime, and I like my chances as well as anybody else's. Especially, too, I think Ken was kind of at a disadvantage in that tournament because of his bye right into the finals. I mean, obviously, it's a $500,000 guarantee, so that's nothing to sneeze at. But Jerome and I had been through the All-Star tournament in the weeks leading up to it, and we were kind of in Jeopardy shape as opposed to Ken, who had been away for a while and hadn't played and may have been dealing with some rust.
Right. Well, you actually had a bye in the first round of the tournament.
Yes.
So since you didn't have to play in the first round, there's been a lot of speculation among Jeopardy fans as to whether you won the $15,000 guaranteed money for a first-round victory despite not playing. So right here on the game show, I want to set the record straight. Were you automatically given the $15,000 for a quote-unquote first-round win?
No. So the bye was to the second round and the guarantee there, but no, they didn't pay me $15,000 for getting a bye through the first round.
All right, there you go. You heard it first right here on the game show. Brad Rutter did not win the $15,000 despite getting a bye into the second round of the Ultimate Tournament of Champions. And to be honest, I didn't think you'd get the $15,000 because that would mean that Ken Jennings, since he got a bye to the final round, would get $115,000 for not even playing.
Right. Yeah. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's true.
So you felt confident that you'd be able to beat Ken?
Yeah, or at least, be competitive. Obviously, when you're dealing with people of similar skill levels, and especially in a game like Jeopardy, you probably already know this, but the way Jeopardy got its name was Merv was pitching it to to the president of NBC in one of its early forms, and the president of NBC, who I don't even know who it was at the time, said, "This is great, but it needs more Jeopardy!" And that's when the Daily Doubles came in. And there's so many opportunities for somebody to take the lead or lose it, and it all comes down to really 4 questions when you really think about it. So that's what makes it such a great show, but also makes it unpredictable, especially when you have people who are evenly matched.
Right, and in fact, not to brag, but I did know the story behind how Jeopardy got its name, and I want to let you know that you were absolutely correct with all the facts you were giving. I was fact-checking you while you were speaking, and it was all correct info. But you know what's funny? Actually, I was looking up this morning. I actually found out that Jeopardy was not the first show to feature the answer and question format. There was apparently a show back in the 40s called the CBS Television Quiz, and that featured the same kind of concept, but back at the time, of course, they didn't really have the technology that we have to record this stuff because it was a live broadcast, so no episodes exist. But apparently, from what I've read, that was the first show that had the answer and question format, and nobody knows whether or not Merv Griffin knew about that show prior to creating Jeopardy, or whether his then-wife Julianne knew about the CBS Television Quiz either, since she actually was the one who gave Merv the idea for Jeopardy by saying, "How many feet in a mile?" And then Merv responded 5,280, which is when the light bulb went off in Merv's head. But it's interesting that there are these game show trivia facts that not many people know about, but they are just as important as the big facts that many people do know about.
Yeah, and I didn't know that either, so I learned something else today.
All right, that's number 2 that I taught you, so I'm going to make a mark about that. So actually, you know what's funny? Back in December, I actually interviewed Ken Jennings, your Jeopardy friend and competitor, and he said he would love another shot at beating you and taking the game show winnings record. So now currently, he's number 2 with $4,123,414.29. Got to put that 29 cents in there. And
yeah, I can't forget that.
Yeah. And Ken is also the second biggest Jeopardy winner of all time at $3,422,700. So would you accept Ken's challenge by playing him for a 3rd time?
Oh, sure. I mean, you don't have to twist my arm to go and play Jeopardy anytime. Don't tell the producers this, but I would probably play for free.
Don't worry, I'll make sure Harry Friedman doesn't hear that. Your secret is safe with me and all the others who are listening. I guess because now it's all about the fun of the game.
Sure. I don't have anything left to prove, I don't think. So now when I go back, I get to see a lot of people who I've made friends with over the years, including the crew of the show, and that's the best part about it. Don't get me wrong, the money's great, but the camaraderie is really what I look forward to.
But is $5 million your next goal?
Sure, why not?
I mean, you're only $444,898 away.
Yeah, there's a good chance I could get that for 2nd place, so it's even better.
And you never know, maybe for Jeopardy's 40th anniversary, they'll have the Battle of the Decades, too.
I am down. That sounds like a great plan to me.
Perfect. I'll write to Harry Friedman, and I'll say, Battle of the Decades 2, Brad's in.
You know, I think he probably knows that already, but I'd appreciate any help you can give me.
We Brads have to stick together. I'm
Absolutely.
helping you out. So I know that you're not fond of a certain competitor that you faced on Jeopardy in the form of a computer named Watson, but I just have to talk to you about the Jeopardy IBM Challenge because it was such an historic game show competition.
From the T.J. Watson Research Center in Yorktown Heights, New York, this is Jeopardy, the IBM Challenge. And now, here is the host of Jeopardy, Alex Trebek.
Thank you, Johnny Gilbert. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And welcome, everyone, to a very special Jeopardy event. For the next 3 days, we're going to be coming to you from this IBM research facility just outside of New York City. And let me tell you why. A little over 3 years ago, the folks at IBM came to us with a proposal that they considered to be the next grand challenge in computing. And that was designing a computer system that could understand the complexities of natural language well enough to compete against Jeopardy's best players. Well, they think they've succeeded, and that's why we're here today. So you are about to witness what may prove to be an historic competition, an exhibition match pitting an IBM computer system against the 2 most celebrated and successful players in Jeopardy history.
When you heard that a computer was being constructed to play Jeopardy, were you at all skeptical?
Sure, yeah, especially because one of the things about Jeopardy that I think is one of the reasons it's so popular is the way they write the clues, there's usually at least 2, but sometimes 4 or 5 different ways into the answer. They give you little hints in it. And I thought a computer wouldn't have that advantage. It could have the biggest database in the world and literally know everything. But to be able to decipher the language of the clues was something else entirely. And I'd never seen any sort of artificial intelligence approach being able to handle that kind of thing. But on the other hand, I figured that Watson was probably pretty good, or else IBM wouldn't have even brought it up. So 2 sides of the coin there.
Right, and something else I recently learned was that although Watson was like any human Jeopardy player in that it was hearing the clues for the first time and had to wait to buzz in until Alex finished reading the clue, the way of telling Watson that it could buzz in at a certain point was different than for you and Ken. As contestants, you get a light that tells you that you can ring in, correct?
Yes.
However, Watson had a little zap of electricity in its system that opened up its buzzer for a ring-in, which was actually faster than the amount of time a human takes to see the ring-in light and buzz in. So to me, that's another disadvantage for you and Ken, wouldn't you say?
Sure. I can't speak for Ken, but I suspect he is like me in this, that if you look for the lights, you're already too late. You're better off timing it off of Alex's voice. And I would think that that would be the Watson equivalent of that.
Well, it's a good thing it's only an exhibition game. So
sure.
Your record is still intact. So the next tournament in your Jeopardy reign was the 2014 Battle of the Decades, which to me was the quintessential Jeopardy tournament.
Hi, folks. I'm Alex Trebek. As you know, America's favorite quiz show has been putting players in jeopardy for 30 years now. To celebrate 30 years young, we are going to be bringing back the best players from the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s to compete in a special competition we're calling the Battle of the Decades.
At the start, there was 45 players that spanned 30 years of the show. And then, of course, when you get to the quarterfinals, you had the best of the best of the best. Were there any players that you competed against that you admired watching while growing up?
Sure. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head who I played against, but Mike DuPage jumped to the top of my mind. And it was a close-run thing to get out of that game with him in the first round.
Tell us what he's won for 400.
2004, Canadian Lorne Michaels took this prize for American humor. Brad?
What's the Mark Twain Prize?
Yes.
Tell us what he's won for 800.
1920, W.E.B. Du Bois medaled as winner number 6. Mike?
What is the spin guard medal?
Correct.
Let's try. Tell us what he's won for 1,200.
January 26th, 1986, Richard Dent sacked the competition. Brad?
What is Super Bowl MVP?
Correct.
Tell us what he's won for 1,600.
1967, Arnold Schwarzenegger becomes a star for the first time. Brad?
What is Mr. Olympia?
No. Mike?
What is Mr. Universe?
That's it. Now the last clue. 1983, I.M. Pei wins the Nobel Prize of Architecture. Brad?
What is the Pritzker?
Pritzker is right. And that was a fortuitous response for you, Brad. And I'm sure you know it.
And he also, as they say, wrote the book on Jeopardy as well. But through all the tournaments, that's one of the cool things is being able to meet people that I grew up watching, like Frank Spangenberg and Jerome Barrett, who lives in L.A., who I've become friends with over the years, and Chuck Forrest, and I could go on and on.
And, of course, Chuck Forrest is infamous for the appropriately named Forrest Bounce move, which involves jumping around the category board. And nowadays, many Jeopardy contestants will use that strategy while playing. But I'm not sure all know that there is an actual term for it called the Forrest Bounce because of Chuck Forrest.
Yeah, I think Arthur Chu got a lot of attention for it, but Chuck was doing it in 1985.
Yeah, and despite a lot of Jeopardy fans not liking the way Arthur Chu played the game, I really enjoyed watching Arthur Chu on Jeopardy because of the strategic way he used the Forrest Bounce. You know, in the rules, it does not say that you have to start at the top of the category and go all the way down to the bottom. When you're in control, you can pick whatever category you want, you can pick whatever clue you want, and any dollar amount you want.
Give my regards, 12.
Answer. Daily double.
Vice President's 8. Give my regards, 8. Home of the Cave, 800.
So it drives me crazy when the media these days gang up on Jeopardy contestants like Arthur Chu for using this quote-unquote unorthodox strategy. Meanwhile, you got a guy back in season 2 named Chuck Forrest who was doing the same thing, picking a clue in this category and a clue in that category and a clue in this category. And I'm sure the media back in the 80s didn't explode this weird style of Jeopardy playing. So I'm sure you agree with me, Brad, when I say that the media should really do their homework and do their research before exploiting Jeopardy contestants like Arthur Chu for using a great strategy like the Forrest Bounce.
Absolutely, yes. Although there is a nice side effect, especially living in Los Angeles. Sometimes they can call me up to be on TV and talk about this stuff, and I can try to set the record straight. So there is a bit of an advantage for me in news organizations not doing their homework, especially about Jeopardy.
All right, so you go on TV in LA, and I'll be here in New York on the radio, and we'll make sure all the correct Jeopardy facts are told on both media outlets.
I think that's a good division of labor.
Right, so we'll have both coasts covered.
Yeah.
Us Brads, we're working together.
Sure, yeah. East Coast Brad and West Coast Brad.
That's right. And before we continue, I have to play your winning $1 million moment from the Battle of the Decades.
This is a tough one, but it's worth $1 million. Secretaries of State is the category. Here is the clue, ladies and gentlemen. Serving 160 years apart, these two Secretaries of State are the only ones who never married. 30 seconds. Good luck. Roger, as you indicated during the commercial break, there was no pressure on you. You know where you're going to finish. You had $2,000. Let's see if you added to it or you lost some of it. Who are Rice and Buchanan? Great game, guys. You are correct. Condoleezza Rice and President Buchanan. And you will add 2,000, and that bumps you up to 4,000. It takes us to Brad Rutter. What was his response? Buchanan and Rice. He is correct. What was his wager? Nothing. So he picks up 11,800 today. Yesterday he had 10,000. That puts him in the lead with 21,800. Ken Jennings, it's up to you now. We need a correct response for $1 million. And we don't have it, and it doesn't matter because you can't acquire enough money. You're going to lose 13,001. Brad Rutter, congratulations. You're the $1 million winner again. Again. What's still the biggest money winner on Jeopardy?
Are you kidding?
You got it.
Truly an incredible game show moment. But as Alex Trebek said in that clip, that was a tough final Jeopardy. But as a whole, which tournament did you find the most difficult?
Most difficult? That's a good question. I know the last one was the most fun. I think maybe because there was the least pressure on me, so I guess it wouldn't be the most difficult. I'm going to say the $1 Million Masters probably, because I think I had more close escapes in that one than any other tournament.
Well, you did win that tournament by just $1, so
yes.
That was a close call. And for someone who always says that the math portion is not your strongest suit, that was a risky move.
Yes. Although the good news is they do give you as long as you want to figure out the arithmetic on stuff like that. So, yeah, if I had to do that in 5 minutes, you'd probably see some mistakes over the years. But fortunately, if given an unlimited amount of time, I can do the calculations 4 or 5 times and be pretty sure they're right.
It's funny because I was watching one of your highlight reels from the Battle of the Decades, and they showed you on the final game when you were deciding what to wager, working out the math. And one of the stagehands, I guess it was by your side. You had a card and you were scribbling down different numbers, and then you said, well, I'll just bet nothing.
Yeah. Well, that was also because I had figured out all the permutations. So, yeah, there were a bunch of different options, but betting zero was always one of them. But after having gone through all the permutations, I figured out that was actually the best option. So it sort of hit me like a lightning bolt.
See, give yourself more credit. You are pretty good at math. You figured that out.
Yeah, sure. Okay, if you want to insist on it, that's fine with me.
All right, we're setting another record straight right here on the game show. Brad Rutter is good at math. Don't believe all the stuff that you hear or the videos that they put out there. Brad Rutter is good at Jeopardy math.
Yes.
All right, so let's step aside from Jeopardy for a bit now and talk about your other game show appearances. First, you were a mob member on NBC's 1 vs. 100 back in 2007. And you competed on the show's Last Man Standing competition. And one of the elements of 1 vs. 100 that I really enjoyed was the phrasing of some of the trivia questions. So here is the question in which you sadly lost on during that competition.
Which has more stories?
Oh.
The Chrysler Building, the Transamerica Pyramid, the complete works of Stephen King.
Holy cow.
And for those of you listening in, I'll give you a second to think about it. And the correct answer is C, the complete works of Stephen King. The Chrysler Building has 77 stories, the Transamerica Pyramid has 48 stories, but Stephen King has written over 200 stories, making his total amount of stories greater than the other two. However, what I want to know is what was your answer to the question, because the show never revealed what you put as your answer.
You know what? I don't remember either. It obviously wasn't Stephen King, but the Chrysler Building is taller than the Transamerica Tower, so I think I went with that. And it was between those two. And again, this was a while ago, and I don't remember exactly what my thinking was, but I thought, well, you know, Stephen King has written a lot of books, but the Chrysler Building has to have at least 70 stories, and I don't think Stephen King's written 70 books, so that was my thinking on it.
And it turned out he wrote over 200 stories.
Yeah.
How many have you read since that moment?
Oh, you know what? I think I read The Stand back in the day, but I think that may be the only Stephen King book I've ever read.
Yeah, they're too long for me. I could watch so many Jeopardy episodes in that time. So you also competed on one of the toughest game shows I think I've ever seen. It was called $1 Million Mind Game. And this was in 2011, and you and a team of your friends who you met at a bar, right?
Yes, yeah, at the O'Brien's Pub Quiz, which is still going on, and I still go to. Actually, it's the most L.A. thing ever, if you want to hear about it, is that when I first moved to town, I lived maybe 3 miles from the quiz, which is in Santa Monica. And since I have moved to the east side of town, which is probably 8 miles farther away, but that ends up being 45 minutes in traffic, so I don't go as often as I used to.
But you and your teammates did fairly well on the show. The 6 of you won and split $600,000.
You won $600,000!
Let's give them a big hand one more time. Congratulations.
Now, this was a different format from Jeopardy, of course. Were you a bit out of your quiz show comfort zone when competing on this show?
Not really, because I think knowing things helped a lot. The questions were logic puzzles, and I can think of one we used to practice. It was a picture of a causeway with the lanes sort of going around a circle and switching in the middle of it, and the question would have been, where is this? And it was between Hong Kong and China, so you could stay in the same lane and switch from driving on the left side of the road to the right side of the road. So it was that kind of thing. Riddle of the Sphinx type things, which I've always been pretty good at that kind of thing too, but actually trivia helps with that even, just because it can give you a way in where you might not otherwise have one.
Actually, that question was used on an episode of $1 Million Mind Game.
Was it?
Yeah, it was, and the correct answer, like you said, was the bridge was used to switch from the left side of the road to the right side of the road, since you drive on the left in Hong Kong and the right in China. And I actually have the clip for our listening audience right now.
This is a visual question. There's a major logistical problem traveling from Hong Kong to mainland China and back again. Take a look at this picture of a bridge design concept which solves the problem. So what's the problem?
And for the listening audience who are still intrigued by these puzzles, I'm going to play for them now, Brad. Your team's winning $600,000 $1 Million Mind Game question to see if they can get the answer. But let me warn you, audience, Brad's team figured out the answer pretty quick. So don't be discouraged if you take a few more seconds than they did.
Here's your $600,000 question. Like you, these professionals can work as a team. They mostly work nights, although only one of them gets to work at home. In 1956, 2 of them were allowed to start wearing glasses, not a moment too soon, according to some critics. Who are these professionals? Your 60 seconds starts now.
My first thought was bees, worker bees,
but they
queen
work
bees
as
at
a
home.
team.
No, only one of them gets to work at home.
Okay, work at home, baseball player.
To work at home, the umpires.
The umpire, baseball umpires, Major League Baseball umpires. Okay, these professionals work as a team, mostly nights. Only one of them gets to work at home.
And it was frowned upon for them to wear glasses because it seemed like they didn't have
good vision. And it took a long time, according to some critics, who you always yell at the ump.
You're blind.
Okay, what else about the question?
Is it at all possible it's a catcher and a pitcher?
That's the team.
They have to work as a team, and only one of them is at home.
Yes.
But there was no rule against either of them wearing glasses.
There was no, they could wear glasses before
Why not?
recently?
Sure.
Okay, let's bank umpires. Bank on baseball umpires.
Yes. Who are these professionals?
Umpires. Okay, bank. What else could it be?
What else could it be?
I was thinking. Adam, do you think anything?
No.
Fighter pilots?
Fighter pilots, mostly at night. Doesn't make sense now. They're mostly drilled.
Who else is at home? 10 seconds. Okay. 10 seconds.
The umpires.
Umpires?
Baseball umpires.
Baseball umpires.
Okay, everybody feels good about baseball umpires.
I think you should say baseball umpires.
Time. Thank you. Brad, could I have your answer, please?
We believe the answer is baseball umpires.
Okay, you're saying baseball umpires. Why do you think it's baseball umpires, Brad?
They work as a team, mostly nights. Most baseball games are at night. Only one can work at home. There's one home plate umpire, so I really like it.
There seems to be
the
some
answer.
sort of joke written in at the end, too. Too late, according to some critics.
Right.
Because you're always yelling at the ref, wear your glasses.
For $600,000. That's the correct answer.
And it's only fitting that the biggest winner in Jeopardy history, as the captain, gave the answer to the question that would make him and his teammates the biggest winners in $1 Million Mind Game history. I actually really enjoyed $1 Million Mind Game because it was a unique spin on a question and answer game show, but it's too bad it was on a horrible time slot. The show aired on ABC at 4 p.m. on Sundays.
Well, the story behind that is that it almost was never on at all. And the only reason they ever showed it was because of the NBA lockout. So ABC had nothing to put on weekend afternoons where the basketball games would usually go. So they decided, we have $1 Million Mind Game in the can, so we might as well show it.
Well, I'm glad they did because it gave you some more game show exposure.
Yeah.
And $1 Million Mind Game was the show that brought your total game show winnings over $4.5 million.
Yeah, actually, the way the contract was set up, we would have got paid anyway, so that's good. But yeah, I'm not sure how that would work with the records. I guess if it never airs, you can't really count it as game show winning, huh?
You make a good point. And speaking of not airing, I know that you actually taped a pilot episode of the British game show The Chase for Fox. Of course, The Chase later was brought to America with the GSN version, but you were actually one of the original chasers for that pilot.
Yes, they shot two of them, one with Mark Labette, the Beast, as the British chaser, and me as the American chaser.
Now, as far as I know, the footage has never been released, so I want to know, did you win the final chase?
I don't remember. I don't think so. I think that they wanted to set it up. Obviously, the only people who were ever going to see this were network execs, so we weren't bound by the usual game show rules because we weren't giving away any real money. So I think they wanted to set it up so that the team would win, and that would be more exciting for the Fox higher-ups to watch. Apparently not exciting enough, but I'm pretty sure I did lose the final chase. We may have even shot it a couple different ways, too.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you seen the GSN version of The Chase?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I'm always intrigued by foreign game shows being brought to America and whether they are played exactly the same as the original. Now, the GSN version only had 3 players on a team, while The Chase in England had 4 players to a team. So, do you remember if the Fox version of The Chase was more like the original British version, and whether it was worth more money than the GSN version since it was network?
Yeah, the Fox show would have been worth a lot more money than the British show or the GSN show, but there were 4 players on a team. I don't know whether that was set in stone or whether there were just 4 spaces on the British set that we were using in London.
Right, because you filmed it in London.
Yes. Also, why I don't remember this so well was I was horribly jet-lagged the entire week I was there. So I've since made the vow never to travel directly to the UK or Europe from the West Coast again.
Did you get to meet any of the other chasers besides Mark Labette?
No, just Mark, who was great, by the way, and really showed me the ropes and helped out above and beyond the call of duty. And likewise, Bradley Walsh, who was fantastic, and he actually hosted the pilot. And there was some uncertainty whether he would host the Fox version if it got picked up, because he may not have wanted to come from London to the West Coast to do that. But just Bradley and Mark, and they were both fantastic. Another
great Brad in show business.
Yes.
And another great game show connection with the name Brad.
We can't get enough of them.
I know, exactly. So is there a game show, past or present, that you've always wanted to play on?
I always love Press Your Luck, and especially if you can time the pattern like that one guy did.
Michael Larson.
But, yes.
Those prizes totaling $5,287 combined with the $104,950 in cash you've won gives you an all-time grand total, Michael, of $110,237. Congratulations!
But I'm sure they would fix that if they brought it back. There was just something I loved about that show with the no whammy, no whammy, no whammy, stop.
No whammy. No whammy. No whammy, please. No whammy.
Looking for the box.
No whammy. No whammy. No!
Stop it already!
I thought that would be a lot of fun to play.
You know, what's interesting about you saying that you like to be on Pressure Luck is that while there is a trivia element on that game show because you answer questions to get spins on the big board, Pressure Luck is basically a chance-based game show. So since we always see you on trivia and knowledge-based shows, it would be so much fun to watch, or at least I would have so much fun watching, you play a pure luck-driven game show.
Yeah. I also always thought it would be fun to be on Supermarket Sweep, bombing down the grocery aisles, picking up 10 packages of Tide.
Joe of Team 3 just can't wait to get his hands on our big boxes of Tide detergent. That's smart. They're worth over $18 a piece.
And who could forget the infamous line host David Rutter would utter to close every episode of Supermarket Sweep.
And this is David Ruprecht saying goodbye for Supermarket Sweep. Now, the next time you're at the checkout counter and you hear that beep, think of the fun you could have on Supermarket Sweep.
You gotta love that beep. Have you ever tried out for Millionaire?
I did back when it was a big deal with Regis, and I would pass the phone test but never got the call. And now it's who wants to be a millionaire, not who has already won millions on game shows. I would certainly hear their pitch if they called me up, but it's not like I'm trying to get on.
Well, Ken went on Millionaire a few years ago and won $100,000, so if you ever do get on Millionaire, that's the number you'll have to beat to take Ken down on yet another quiz show. And maybe ABC has that in the works, a Brad Rutter versus Ken Jennings Millionaire showdown.
Hey, if that's how they wanted to pitch it, they'd have receptive ears.
All right, so now I got to call up Millionaire, too. Look how many great ideas I'm giving ABC. I mean, I should really be hired as their game show lineup producer, or at least ABC should hire me as their game show consultant.
Hey, you got my vote.
Well, Brad, we've reached my favorite portion of the game show. We are going to play an actual game, and as we've been talking about your game show past, I hope all the memories have been coming back to you, as today's game, like I said before, is all about moments of your television game show career. Are you ready to play?
Yes, although this could be very embarrassing.
I hope not. I hope not. This is the game of the day.
Game of the day.
And it is called Rutter Rewind. Rutter Rewind. Now, Brad, I know you know a lot about various topics, but let's see how much you know about the topic of yourself. So here's how we play Rutter Rewind. I have 4 categories in front of me. Each of them has 3 Jeopardy-style clues, and in a moment you'll pick a category and I'll read those 3 clues in order. The first one being worth 200 points, the second is worth 400 points, and the third is worth 600 points. And just like in Jeopardy, they increase in difficulty, and since they are in the form of Jeopardy clues, you must answer in the form of a question.
Got it.
I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Never heard of that before. That's interesting.
It's a brand new concept I'm trying out. Hopefully it works. So there's a total of 4 categories, and during the course of the game, you'll be able to pick and play 3 of them. And if you can accumulate 3,000 or more points from your correct questions, you will be deemed a winner.
Okay.
And just before we start, there are a couple more elements to the game. 1, there is no Jeopardy for a wrong answer, so just take a guess if you don't know it.
Got it.
And also, one of the categories is the daily double category, which means all the point values will be doubled.
Okay.
If you're ready, let's play Rutter Rewind.
Let's do it.
All right, here come the categories. And they are Brad Rutter's Big Moments, Jeopardy Ain't the Only Game Show I Was On, That Darn Watson, and finally the ever-popular Jeopardy category, Stupid Answers.
Let's start with big moments.
All right, Brad Rutter's Big Moments. Here we go. For 200 points, these were the 2 players you defeated to win the Jeopardy $1 Million Masters Tournament.
Who is Bob Verini and Eric Newhouse?
Bob Verini and Eric Newhouse are correct for 200 points. Off to a great start. For 400 points, the combined amount of money you earned in the 3 finals games of the Jeopardy Ultimate Tournament of Champions. I'll give you a $2,000 spread.
Okay. I think since it was the first 3-day final, it was briefly the record for most money won. And I want to say, what is 62,000?
You got it right on the nose, 62,000.
I seem to remember it being even, which helped.
Yes, it was 62,000. You don't even need that spread.
Yeah.
So you're up to 600 points, and this is the last clue in this category. Brad Rutter's big moments for 600 points. The name of this award earned you a lock during your qualifying game of the Jeopardy Battle of the Decades.
What is the Pritzker Prize?
That is correct, the Pritzker Prize. You have cleared that category. You have 1,200 points. And it's time to choose another category. Jeopardy ain't the only game show I was on. That darn Watson or Stupid Answers.
Okay, let's do Stupid Answers. That's always one of my favorite Jeopardy categories.
You need 3,000 to win, and you have 1,200, so you have 1,800 points to go. This is Stupid Answers for 200 points. The answer is the amount of money you received for winning the $1 Million Masters tournament.
What is $1 million?
Go figure. That's correct for
This is why I love this category.
I know, right? And for the past few years, Jeopardy hasn't been featuring the Stupid Answers category that much, but I think they need to bring it back and fast. Don't you agree?
I agree.
So when I contact Harry Friedman, that's another point I have to make. Include more Stupid Answers. For 400 points, Jeopardy contestants should be aware that this word means exposure to or imminence of death, loss, or injury, according to Merriam-Webster.
What is Jeopardy?
Jeopardy is correct. Very good. And you're up to 1,800 points for 600 points in the category of Stupid Answers. You must have been stoked when you knew the final Jeopardy response during Game 2 of the IBM Challenge was this author.
Who is Bram Stoker?
Correct, Bram Stoker. See what I did there, Stoker?
Yeah, nice.
I am just so clever. All right, so you have 2,400 points. You only need 600 points, and you have Jeopardy ain't the only game show I was on, or that darn Watson, one of which is also the Daily Double category.
Jeopardy ain't the only game show I was on.
Jeopardy ain't the only game show I was on. And would you believe that? That is not the Daily Double category.
Oh!
But you haven't even missed a question yet, so you might not even need the double point value clues. Now, once again, you have 2,400 points, so to win, you need to earn at least 600 points with this category.
Okay.
For 200 points, he defeated you during the quarterfinals round of GSN's Grand Slam.
Who is Ogie Ogus?
Ogie Ogus is correct for 200 points, which brings you up to 2,600. And speaking of Grand Slam, did you have fun competing in that tournament? Because I certainly had fun watching it.
Yeah, I did. I just wish there was less math.
Right, yeah, because you kind of lost the battle with Ogie because of the math category.
Actually, funnily enough, I have a little story for you. I may have actually won that match if I hadn't finished saying 3 before I said 2 to one of the math questions. In fact, we went through the rest of that round, and I got through it in probably 30 seconds. But then they played the tape back, and I actually had said 3 before I changed to 2, so they had to throw that round out, and I had to do another one. So,
Really?
which I didn't do nearly as well on.
Game show behind the scenes, I love it.
Yep, the inside info.
And for those of you who don't know or remember, Grand Slam was a tournament GSN conducted back in the summer of 2007 that pitted the top game show players of all time against each other. And the higher-ups at GSN, if you're listening to this, I think you should bring back Grand Slam because to me, that was one of the best shows you've ever produced. Anyway, I'll write to GSN about that later, but back to the task at hand. For 400 points in the category of Jeopardy ain't the only game show I was on, $1 Million Mind Games British and white tuxedo-wearing host.
Who is Vernon Kay?
Vernon Kay is correct.
Who I still interact with on Twitter from time to time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's also the UK's #1 American football fan.
Interesting. See, the game show is a two-way street. I'll teach you a few things and you'll teach me a few things. And with that answer, that's 3,000 points. Brad, you have won Rutter Rewind.
Yes.
Congratulations. Another game that you've won at.
That wasn't nearly as embarrassing as I feared.
I don't know why you were so worried. You were 8 for 8. And in case you needed it, the 600-point clue in the category of Jeopardy ain't the only show I was on would have been this. This was the numbered box you were located in during the 1 versus 100 last man standing competition.
Oh, this one's tough. I want to say either 12 or 21. I'm going to go with what is 21?
No, that was wrong.
It was wrong.
The number was also in the title of a 60s game show called the blank $1,000 question.
It was 64.
It was 64, that's right.
I had 1 and 2 in my head for some reason, but that's one I would never have remembered in a million years.
Good thing you got to 3,000 before that.
Yes.
Now, you've already won, but just for fun, because I never like to leave clues unanswered, let's try the remaining category, that darn Watson, and see how you would have done against your old friend.
If we have to.
Yes, we must. Actually, when I interviewed Ken, he tells me you and him don't like to talk about the Watson event.
No, and for obvious reasons.
Yeah. And Watson sadly led you astray once again, as that darn Watson is the Daily Double category. All right, all the point values are doubled in this category, so for 400 points in that darn Watson, the avatar representing Watson best resembles this, with 5 dashes on the top and lines swirling around it.
What is the Earth?
The Earth is correct, yep, you got it. So now you're up to 3,400 points, and I calculated it before, and I hope I'm right. The most points you can score in this game is 6,000, because you have 3 categories worth 1,200 points each, and the Daily Double category worth 2,400, so I believe that's 6,000 total points you can score. So
That sounds right, but I will have to take your word for it.
I'm pretty sure it's 6,000. You know, I learned math from watching Wheel of Fortune, so hopefully it did well. All right, for 800 points in the category of that darn Watson. Your opponent Ken Jennings' Game 2 Final Jeopardy joke, I for one welcome our new computer overlords, was a reference to this animated series.
What is The Simpsons?
The Simpsons is correct.
And I, for one, welcome our new insect overlords.
And that brings your total to 4,200, and this last question is worth 1,200 points, which means a correct response will get you a score of 5,400 out of a possible 6,000 points. One of the 2 charities IBM donated half of the $1 million prize to by winning the Jeopardy IBM Challenge.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember. Let's say, what is the United Way?
No, it was not the United Way. It was, what is World Vision?
Oh, right, because of Alex.
Or World Community Grid.
Okay, I'd never heard of that one before or since, but I'm sure they do fine work.
But you got 4,200 points, which means you're still a winner.
Hey.
Forget all those fancy $1 million tournaments on television. You can go on radio and still win quiz shows.
All I do is win, 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 Bradley.
All you do is win, 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 no matter what. And along with that tribute to DJ Khaled, that was the game of the day, Rutter Rewind. Rutter Rewind. And before I close out the show, I have a few more quick questions for you. First, are you the type of quiz show contestant that studies up on weaker topics before going on the show? Or do you play with the knowledge you already have and hope that your topics of expertise come up?
90% of it is just knowing what I know, but when the realm of what Jeopardy can ask about is pretty much anything, it's hard to study, but there is a lot of stuff that comes up all the time, like Shakespeare and world capitals and stuff like that, so I always brush up on the stuff that comes up a lot, presidents, that kind of thing.
Potables.
Yes.
Did you practice for the buzzer before going on the first time? Now, I know Ken practiced by using one of his son's toys that resembled the Jeopardy buzzer, but did you practice ringing in with anything?
No, I never have. I just, for some reason, can time Alex's voice well, and that's kind of all I need to do.
You and Trebek are in sync.
Yes, there's some sort of mind meld going on. Well, it's not just me and him. It's also, the system is opened up manually by somebody, I think, at the judges' table. So I'm also melding with them.
And for those listeners who don't know, just as Alex Trebek finishes reading a clue, a light goes off at the bottom of the game board so the players know when they can buzz in. Now, I've not seen Jeopardy in person yet, but hopefully one day I'll get to see the light switch in action.
It's a fun experience. I've been in the audience also many times. Johnny Gilbert is still going strong and entertaining the crowd before and after the show, and Alex always talks to the audience during the commercial breaks, and obviously has a great job already, but if he ever needs to make a little extra cash, he could probably end up doing stand-up too.
That Trebek is one funny guy. And speaking of hosts, didn't you use some of your winnings to start a game show in your hometown?
I did, yes. It was your standard high school quiz bowl teams playing each other. It seems like ages ago now, but yes, it was called Inquisitive on Channel 21 in Pennsylvania, where I'm from.
No offers to host another game show?
Not as of yet, but we'll see.
Well, like I said before, my dream is to become a game show host. So if you ever have the game show hosting itch, hit me up and we can do the Brad Squared game show concept that I'm sure many networks would be interested in.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the Brad Squared game show will be a hit. See how many great ideas we can come up with in the short time we've been talking?
I know. It's a miracle they haven't hired both of us already.
I know. Or what about a writer? Has Jeopardy ever asked you to become a clue writer for the show?
No, and honestly, looking at it from a strictly business perspective, I'm worth a lot more to them as a contestant than as a writer. So
Very true.
If after Alex leaves they want to kind of go a different direction, then maybe they might want to hire me for that. But that would also mean I would never be able to be on the show again. So there you go.
Well, now that you put that point out there, I think it's safe to say that the viewers would rather watch you as a contestant than watch your name fly by on the credits as a writer. And the last question I have for you is, out of all the sets you've competed on, from your original appearance on the so-called Sushi Bar set, to the Platinum set for the Ultimate Tournament of Champions, to the new set for the Battle of the Decades, do you have a preference as to which set you liked competing on the most?
Well, I won the most on the Platinum set, but I still have a soft spot in my heart for the Sushi Bar.
I gotta say, the Sushi Bar set is my all-time favorite set, and it's probably because that was the set Jeopardy had when I was first introduced to the show, and just the way it was designed was really unique and cool.
Yeah, in fact, I'm looking at my desk right now, and it's still that sort of golden blonde wood look, which I'm a fan of.
I've always been fascinated as to why it was called the Sushi Bar set, because when the set was first introduced by Alex, which actually happened to be on a Celebrity Jeopardy episode, Alex said the design was supposed to resemble a home den.
Welcome to Jeopardy, or should I say, welcome to the new home of Jeopardy. In redesigning our set the way we have kept you, the viewer, very much in our thoughts, because we wanted you to feel as you sat at home and played along against our contestants that you were in the warmth, the comfort, and security of your very own den, albeit a very large and expensive den. We hope you like the change.
I've personally always loved the sliding doors that read Jeopardy and that Alex would enter through at the start of each episode. Don't you think they should bring back the sliding doors?
Yeah. I'm also kind of disappointed I never got to actually walk out on stage to start the game, but I understand that for liability purposes, that's probably not a great idea.
Well, yeah, because they used to say, now entering the studio are today's contestants.
Yes. Now entering the studio are today's contestants.
Well, when I talked to Harry Friedman about all my suggestions, I'll also mention that Brad has always wanted to enter the studio as Johnny Gilbert introduces him, so make it happen next time he's invited back for a tournament. I'll even hashtag it, hashtag make Brad's dream come true. Now that he is a recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award Emmy, I'm sure he will be happy to talk to me. Well, Brad, it's been such an honor and a pleasure to speak with you today, and thank you so much for talking to me about Jeopardy and more on this episode of The Game Show.
You're very welcome. It's been a lot of fun.
And you are certainly welcome back at any time you want as my guest on the program.
Great.
Maybe one day we'll have a Battle of the Decades reunion show with you, Ken, and Roger.
Hey, I'm up for it. So if you can track those guys down, let's do it.
Awesome. And if and when you ever compete again on Jeopardy or any other quiz show and you want to talk about your experience, send me a message and Brad Squared can have another chat about game shows.
Sounds like a plan.
So I look forward to seeing you on Jeopardy again and hopefully breaking that $5 million mark. And when you do go over $5 million, be sure to thank me because I helped you prepare immensely with Brad Rutter trivia.
When I run the Brad Rutter category in the next tournament, I will be sure to do so.
You never know. Jeopardy can have a category on just about anything, so you always have to be prepared. I'm doing my best for you, as I said. Brad and Brad sticking together till the very end.
Absolutely.
All right, Brad, take care, and I hope to speak with you again soon.
Likewise. You too.
All right, so long, Brad.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And that's going to do it for this episode of The Game Show. Thank you once again to Brad Rutter, the biggest money winner in both Jeopardy and game show history, for spending some time with me today. And to wrap things up, here's a Jeopardy answer just for all of you. This talk show, which host Bradley Clarke discusses the world of television game and competition shows on, should be the show you tune into next time for another great episode. Of course, the correct question: what is The Game Show?
This edition of The Game Show was created and produced by Bradley Clarke and was recorded at the WRHU studios. This is Austin Angelo speaking.